a year.
Yeah, we need to stop that practice, don't we?
Right, and what the hose does is you get sick leave per year, and you use it or you don't use it. If you don't use it, they'll give you like a $250 check at the end of the year to thank you for being so healthy. But they don't our system is essentially, you got your salary, and then we give you on top of that your sick leave, whatever that works out to, $5,000 a year. And then if you are sick, you buy back that sick leave from us, but your salary is really much higher because we'll just pay for your sick leave at the end of the year. So that's really people view it as a salary bonus if they don't use it, and that's kind of unusual.
Now, I believe it was Peter who said that you thought we should deal only with future hires, not
Yeah, it's kind of hard
so much
to,
changing.
if we wanted to change present people, what I might do is say that in 2019, we're going to convert to one class. So there's still those level ones out there. And we've been talking for years that we really need some of them to just retire if we're going to be able to make our budget this year. If we're going to make our budget this year, some of this succession planning, which is almost all level ones, we need to figure out a way to give them an incentive to finally retire. It might be to move everybody to a new plan in 2019.
Okay.
And that way they've got a whole year to think about it. So that's one way to do it. And then, and that new plan might be essentially level 3, collapse all level 1s and 2s into a 3. And then for new employees, and maybe even some of the level 3s, fix the sick leave problem. That's not unreasonable. I don't know if you can do much about steps with the level 3s, but any new hire, we don't need to put them up so high. We don't need to accelerate them so quickly. And so I'm worried about having in 20 or 30 years time something that's sustainable, knowing that we're still caught with some legacies for now.
Okay.
But let's not try to design a system for the people we have now. Let's design the system we want and figure out a way to get the people we have now transitioned. We could pay them out. We can get some restructuring board money to give them bribes to move to the new system, something.
Okay.
But figure out the system you want and not be so caught up about the system we have.
Okay, so we'll figure out how to get everybody to that, but let's come up with what we think is a good system.
Right.
Okay. Dale went to see the county personnel director and found out that the county system is nearly as fractured as ours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's not nearly as generous as ours, but, and different people have different plans. So I think the thing for us to do is make our own, but, make it solid and the same for everyone. Now, when we do this, do we need a resolution to eliminate the 1, 2, and 3 levels at the previous resolution?
I think you can just say, have a resolution to replace the previous resolution with the new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we feel like we need to do this soon.
Yeah, I think at this point we need to make the longevity payments. So there's nothing we can really do with this payment. We're going to have to write all these sick leave checks out this year because we don't really have that policy in place. But, if we don't do it relatively soon, you can imagine that we'll be up against next December arguing with managers and, roll it over for another year. So, yeah.
Okay, so performance evaluations, we want that to be a part of this.
Ideally.
Yep.
See what other cities do.
Vacation, you either use it in the same year or you lose it. You can't accumulate it. And we'd like to see how much vacation, typical municipal employees get. Make sure our guys aren't getting more than they should.
Or new hires, yeah.
One thing that happens, I guess, with state employees, and you probably know about this, is you can bank up to 200 hours of sick leave.
200 days of sick
200 days of sick leave, and then you get paid out at 85% of your salary, but that's applied for your retiree benefits.
Right.
Okay. I don't see how that would be all that attractive for a new hire. Because
the state employees find it very attractive.
But they stick around forever.
Yeah, one reason is you also have to have deductibles and co-pays for retirees too, right? If you make it essentially free healthcare, then they say, well, yeah, why give me any money for healthcare? You're already giving me
free healthcare.
But the county, I think, charges, for instance, for their active employees, they charge a 25% copay, which is more than any of the copays we pay. And for the spouse and dependents, 50%. And then, so if we had copays where the people are actually copaying, that they really are sharing some of the risk of their healthcare costs, first of all, they're going to make better decisions. But then second of all, now all of a sudden this 200 days of accumulated sick leave is attractive to them. Yeah. It's a reason to try to maximize it and bank it. Well, and then once you hit 200 days, you don't get any more. You're limited there.
Right.
So, and to be honest, some people probably won't use up the whole 200 days over their lifetime. So that way, the city will eventually save money on those individuals. And we pay it back slowly rather than one huge check when they retire, for that matter, too.
Right. Or we could just eliminate that benefit altogether.
Yeah, if other cities do it. I looked at Cohoes because I could remember showing you guys the code earlier. They spell out, it was really easy to find in the code exactly what to do with health and sick leave and stuff. So that's the only city I've looked at. But boy, if we had the Cohoes system, we'd be doing much better.
Okay.
And I don't know if they're one end of the spectrum or not. But yeah, look around and see what else is out there. We want to treat our new employees fairly. We want to figure out a way to also transition our existing employees in a way that's fair as well. But what I told a couple of the managers on the strategy team the other day, you'll understand the math of this, is half of our general fund is fixed. It's not rising. So the other half has to absorb all the increases in expenses.
Right.
So it would have to rise at twice the inflation rate and bust the tax cap every year if we only had just the inflation rate in our expenses. But we have a much higher than the inflation rate in our expenses because, first of all, if it's COLA protected by their bargaining, so they get at least inflation or more typically.
Yes.
And then we add that longevities and step increases and promotions and stuff. So if we look at the trajectory of our expenses, it's quite a bit higher. Let's say it's 5 percentage points higher than inflation. Then we need our general fund to go up at a rate of 10 percentage points because it has to cover half of the fund, or the tax revenue has to go up by 10% because half the fund pays for all the expenses, all the rises in expenses. So, but it's even worse than that because even if we could let our tax rate go up by 10%, that average rate of increase in our expenses applies to our whole spectrum of employees. But if we said, okay, we can't afford that 10% increase in revenue, we're going to cut back by 10% in our expenses, we'd be required to cut back by like 20% of our employees because they're the lowest income ones that we're cutting back. So the math is just incredibly scary and totally unsustainable.
Right.
I think in many jobs, you get a job and you get a cost of living increase, hopefully on a regular basis. And if you want more money, you get promotions and maybe modest raises every once in a while based on the assumption that you're becoming more productive. But that guy is sitting on the back of a garbage truck. Is he really getting more productive? Probably not. I think he's probably getting less productive over time.
Yeah.
So we got a system that just rewards people in a way that's completely uncorrelated with what they give back to the city.
Yes, and we can't afford it.
Right.
So.
But you can work your way up. Like Mike Brody went from, mail clerk or whatever to, superintendent. You can advance in the system and do very well by the system.
Right.
If you want to, push your skills and constantly learn and stuff. There is an avenue for promotion, but we essentially promote everybody through these longevity and step increases, whether or not they're doing anything that benefits the city. So I want to get away from that automatic raise thing and have it somehow be linked to productivity if we're going to be sustainable.
One argument I've heard about employee benefits is that we pay municipal employees lower, so their benefits should be better and they should have a good retirement. But in this city, it's both.
That's right.
They get paid very, very well and they get superb benefits, more than we can afford.
That's
So,
right. I've seen that analysis before too,
Yeah.
and then I've seen comparisons of similar jobs in the private versus the public sector. And typically, the public sector does pay about 10% more. Not if you're like a software engineer. There's exceptions, but the public sector does pay higher, and they get far better benefits. So one of the arguments from the public sector people is, like me, is well, they're more educated, they're more highly trained, they do their masters, etc. And I don't know. I don't know if a public sector employee really is a better employee than a private sector employee. Maybe they are, but the jury's out on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything's kind of screwed up, and we're so far away from having it fixed. But we talked to Mike Cashman today. He called, and I didn't want to give all the details in this, but we know more than I really could say in there. We think that the town has been holding back a sum that could be into the seven figures that the city really deserves. Like could be as high as $10 million that they've tricked us out of. And we don't know if it's recoverable or not, but we're obviously upset. And I basically asked Mike point blank in that conversation, I said, so you're only going to be receiving $3,000 from Saranac Power Partnerships, and us 7,000. So, yep, that's it. But I saw a piece of paper right in front of me that I know they're receiving over the next 6 years, like $1.6 million. So I said, Mike, you got to feel our pain. When you cut us back from 93,000 to 7,000, we're having to make another 3 layoffs. We need to be sustainable. You may have read in my article in the paper today that I said that if we're not sustainable, what else do we do but go bankrupt? And then he's just like completely quiet on the other side of the line for like 10 seconds. And he's with their legal counsel, probably, holy cow. And then he started saying, well, you can't really go bankrupt. We don't have to take you on. And I go, well, I guess we could have that argument, but it seems to me somebody's going to take us on. It's going to likely be you guys. And
I told him once that I thought the best thing we can do for the city is dissolve ourselves, and turn ourselves over to the town. And he said, oh no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we should keep talking about that. And I liked your article today. It was good.
Yeah.
Or do you believe in? Would you feel comfortable in dissolution if push came to shove?
If it turns out that we can't make any headway with the unions and the managers, and we just have this thing where our revenue is like this, but our expenses are like this, we can look and we can say, well, in 10 years, if we're going to try to get those two to balance, our taxes are going to have to double. I know in 10 years, if that's the case, then we're going to start losing people in the droves.
Yes.
And we're going to go from a population of 20,000 to 10,000, and people won't be able to sell their houses, etc. The only people who are here that are people who can't go anywhere else.
Can't afford to leave. Yeah.
And if that's the best we can do with all the efforts we're doing right now, the best we can do is be essentially defunct. Why don't we just go defunct now and save everybody from that and try some other better system?
Aggravation,
And give us a chance for saving this thing by changing the way the city does business. Now, I'm absolutely hoping we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But if we know we're going to have to do that at some point, that's what I said to Mike today. I said, if we're going to have to do that in 10 or 20 years, we might as well do that now.
Yes.
Why go through all that pain and disruption when that's the inevitable path we're on?
In the mind of the public, they don't really know when they're in the city and when they're in the town.
Right.
Nobody knows where the town line is, and they consider them one entity.
Yeah.
So it's really an artificial division anyway.
It is. It's becoming a problematic one.
Yeah.
The other thing I said, he kind of implied that in the last conversation I had with him on this about a week ago, that we couldn't really take them over because then they would just pass a local law putting essentially a special assessment district just on the city part of the combined area, and then stick the city part with OPEB, the $277 million healthcare liabilities, etc. Make just the city residents pay for that. So I reminded him that today. I said, that might work for a little while, but you do remember that in the city there's about 20,000 residents. In the town there's only 13,000 residents. You might try that for a little while, but pretty soon you're going to be outvoted.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more city ward councilors than town councilors, and then the city's going to get screwed. And the town, or the town's going to get screwed, and the city's going to spread all those costs over that wider population. So, Mike, you might want to reevaluate how you think that's all going to go down. So,
I doubt that is even legal.
What he wants to do, I don't think
the state's encouraging us to merge.
That's right.
So they're going to do everything in their power to help us with that if we were to decide to do it.
That's what I told him too. I said there's not going to be any level of government that's going to let the city just somehow disappear. It's going to be amalgamated. Who else is going to be amalgamated into except for the town that completely surrounds it, right? We're not going to join Peru or Beatontown. We're going to join the town of Plattsburgh, and our voters are going to be more than your voters.
Yeah.
So I think he was pretty shocked by that discussion. He's the one that opened the door, though.
Yeah, and I can't believe that, there's something fishy they've done to enrich themselves at our expense.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very upsetting.
Yeah.
I think we don't know for sure, so I don't want to draw any hard conclusions, but I think it happened in 2008 with Bernie Bassett and some fast one that basically said that they're going to form some sort of, I think they called it in a document I saw it today, some home community area or agreement, home community agreement. So before we had a pilot, so all the money from Saranac goes into the pilot, and then we all split it. Mm-hmm. Under the home agreement, whatever Saranac Power pays, it goes first to pay off the home community agreement, the first 50%, then the remainder of the 50% goes to the pilot, which then we all split. So the town gets their 50%, and then they get whatever share of the pilot, so they end up getting like 60 or 70%. And how the pilot was really designed was the town was supposed to get a third and the city was supposed to get 2/3. So I think that's what happened is they invented this new organization called a home community agreement in 2008.
And did the city sign on for that?
No, we didn't even know about it. I was just from Richard Marks. I said, "Were you the Chamberlain there? What happened?" He goes, "Well, they just said it to us. They sent us a letter saying the new pilot is 420 or 570,000, whatever it was then, and here's our share." So he thought they were being honest, and didn't know that there was a little side deal going on there. So that's what I think happened, but I'm not exactly sure yet. And the IDA, I've asked them for the data, and they refused to give it to me so far.
You made the mistake of trusting them.
Yeah, kind of scary, isn't it?
We do that a lot. I mean, the city has a good heart, has always had a good heart, I think, and has, been in the mindset to help people, but we just can't do it anymore.
It sure comes to kick us in the butt, though, every time we do, doesn't it?
No more Mr. Nice Guy after a while,
So Rochelle was seeing this whole dynamic in our negotiations with Mike, and Mike lying, me asking very pointed questions, and him giving me answers that I know were false. Mm-hmm. And we all in the room know they were false because we had a little briefing session before the meeting. Yeah. We were all saying, well, I wonder what he's going to say if we ask this question, blah, blah, blah. So I was kind of walking around the room because we were on speakerphone, and Rochelle said to me afterwards, "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" And I go, actually, this time I did. I don't usually like conflict, but when you know somebody's just being duplicitous with you.
Yeah.
And then he said, last thing we want to have is for this to get out to the media. So if you think there's any possibility there's some sort of conflict between the city and the town, you make sure that both of us sit down with Joe Latemplio together and we explain our story. And I go, no, I don't think we're going to be doing that. Yeah. If the media gets a whiff of that, they're going to be all over us. I don't think I'm going to have time to say, no, wait, I got to have Mike Cashman in the room before I can talk to the media.
Right. Yeah, he wouldn't do the same for you.
No, not in a second, of course. Yeah. So, it's really too bad, though, that
it is.
And it might be legally that there's two ways to look at it. Maybe we're looking at it wrong. Maybe what they did was completely legitimate. We don't know that for sure yet, but sure stinks to high heaven. And I'm not the only person. The entity that actually is going to do the best out of this new agreement, besides the town, is the Town School District. And he said, he called me twice today, and he said, you know, I'm with you, city, and maybe, I know that our jurisdictions don't overlap, but we believe we've been screwed by the town, and we believe you've been screwed by the town, and if you want to do a joint suit with us, we'd be happy to do it with you.
Isn't this the kind of thing that somebody goes to jail for doing?
Maybe. But it's just that kind of Clinton County old boys sit in a room, make a deal, and not telling